Not very easy, frankly, at least for me, but it's done.
And the nice thing is that in the book, I think a lot of the very strenuous balance that you must have had to work out comes off very beautifully.
Thank you.
So it's a lovely collection, as I said. I would highly recommend it to anybody who is interested not only in this particular theme, but in the writing and the translation of stories like this. So it's wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Sarna.
Thank you
for your lovely
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Navdeep Sarna, ladies and gentlemen, in conversation with Dr. Srijana Mitra Das. A big round of applause for both of them. And now we are open to some questions if we have. We have another 10 minutes for questions that come up from the audiences. Do we have someone? Do we have any questions coming up from the audiences? There, a hand. Yes, a little up. Yeah, you can put it up. You can put it full up. Yeah, go for it. We come to you. Yeah, it's there. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have this, I have read a lot about partition. For some years I was also in Karachi, and a lot of interest because one tries to understand what really happened, as a sensitive Indian and belonging to a particular group. What I would like to also understand from these stories is, which really didn't come out, was there a sense of ruthlessness which your father must have experienced because you've left everything behind, come to a new country, setting up everything, and as you said, there is nostalgia. Some people were afraid to go back to their roots, some did have the courage to go back. But the whole question is, when you have left your past behind, is there a feeling of ruthlessness which maybe not in these stories, but some stories it might have been there?
Rootlessness.
Yes.
Yes, there's definitely a sense of rootlessness because it took them several years to consider Delhi their home.
Okay, but that did come around that they did.
Well, ultimately it does. People got reconciled,
Okay.
Human beings are extremely elastic.
Yes.
And you get reconciled to the most irreconcilable of situations.
That's true.
But it took time, and it because they had to get into, for most people, they came with nothing.
Yes.
As they used to say, we came with the 3 clothes on our back. But they literally came with nothing, so they had to get into the actual practical challenge of bread and butter, of finding jobs, of trying to find accommodation, of trying to get education. An entire generation of people didn't go to proper school or college. Somebody did BA in what was called camp college. It was a camp, refugee camp college. Some other place was giving degrees from somewhere else. So they got into those requirements. So I suppose that helped to forget. But it was not easy. There was a huge sense of rootlessness.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Another question? A sir there waits for you. There. Okay, it's okay. We go ahead.
I have 2 questions. The stories in this collection, how far are they autobiographical or are they more fictitious?
They are not purely autobiographical, but I know that my father went through partition right there. So he actually saw this violence at very close quarters. So a lot of it, a lot of the visions, a lot of the images, a lot of the incidents are real. He was either a witness to them or he heard them. And of course, then he, being a fiction writer, he has fictionalized them.
And the second question I want to ask is the story, The Butcher. In that, do you think we are being judgmental about this man because we are judging him in peace times for something that he did at a time when the world was almost upside down? There was, people had gone mad, there was bloodlust, as some people say, and what he did was maybe not condonable, but it was what was happening at that time. They were all not behaving in normal ways.
Well, that's true, but that's a question of taking a value judgment, and it will be for each person to do. The protagonist, who is the uncle in this story, decides to take the hard line because, according to his value system, this man should not have done it. Because he was neither being faithful to basic humanity, nor was he, according to this story, being faithful to his faith.
Right, but most people, even of the mildest, the most docile people at that time, were behaving in a very uncharacteristic fashion during partition.
I think it's a question of where you draw the line and what you accept and what becomes condonable.
Very good afternoon, sir. Okay, first of all, I came here and I just thought to attend this seminar. And really, a few of lines in the book, it just simply got through my mind. The question I had is that we have never witnessed such things. I'm like, at least my generation has never witnessed it at any point. The literary classics in Punjabi and Bengali or something, which are turned into English, do you think the people will be able to catch up that essence, that fear, that pain of that time? And as it's said, it's important to know the past, but it's even important to move on. But still we should learn. So how should people know and feel that essence, to respect that essence? Because see, to be very honest, some people right now, it must be the third generation after Gandhiji, but I still know people who debate about it. Is Gandhi good? Is Gandhi bad? So there may be coming a time when people will argue, is talking about those partition is valid or not? God, that was simply bullshit. Or is it correct? We should respect it, we should not. So how should that essence be still felt correctly?
Well, I think we talked about this earlier, that yours is a very valid question because coming from your generation. But that's what I said, that we need to produce more history, we need to produce more literature dealing with the subject into the mainstream for the other generations. And as was mentioned, that new films are being made and so on. I think there's there's no choice. What was it? It's a historical fact. So the question remains whether or not the new generations will learn about the historical fact, and hopefully you will.
I have one more question. It's like, do you think that the regional languages should be promoted?
Absolutely. I mean, they are. This is probably going to be discussed in the afternoon, but I think regional languages have a huge wealth of literature. All our regional languages, and we don't have the translation industry.
Come on, we have songs in Punjabi, like people, I'm a bongo and I can sing like all the songs which have a little Punjabi words or something. But the fact is that what do you think, if the lines written by your father in Punjabi, if they were printed in this book and down they were translated in English, what do you think? This thing could have been much better way to understand for the person to get the right essence and for future?
I think there's no choice. For Punjabi speakers, there's the Punjabi literature. For non-Punjabi speakers, you need to translate.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There's loads of questions coming from that side. Okay. Now to you, sir. Yes.
No, actually, my question was already, she has put my question, maybe in her own words. Now, I was also born after partition. Maybe I'm a little older than her. But my question is that, no, it's always those who forget history are condemned to repeat in all those statements. So revisiting history is also very important, as well as for the newer generation. As post-partition, lot of events like 1984s and 2002s, and now when I see those television debates, they say that, okay, now move on. Why we are going back to this? So this is a sort of a dilemma which is faced by the new generation now. Revisiting history and saying, no, how long you are going to discuss all these things? We'll have to move on. So how you look at this dilemma?
No, I think moving on doesn't mean forgetting. That is it. You have to remember and you have to move on. I don't see a contradiction. You can't stay there in that situation, but you can't forget. At the same time, I mean, you have to know what happened, you have to analyze it, you have to understand it, you have to internalize it, and then you have to move on. But that doesn't mean forgetting.
I hope that answers your question. Moving on to the lady there. Yes, ma'am.
I have,
Okay.
while I understand that we do have a lot of horrible ghosts of the present, but we still should look at the past from an academic perspective or whichever perspective. If I do decide or choose to read about partition as a subject, as a topic, how difficult, it's very difficult for me to choose what to read, because if I read A Train to Pakistan or if I watch a Pinjar, I get a certain perspective about what happened in Pakistan. If I watch it's a very famous Pakistani drama called Dastan, I get a completely different perspective of what happened in during the partition. If I read some independent UN report or some independent figures, I get a different perspective of what really happened during the partition, how many people died, which caste, which side. So how do I choose? Because for a sensitive subject like the partition, which is ultimately going to frame my perspective of how the history of my country shaped up, how do I choose what I should read? Because I think it's a very important decision to make when I decide to choose to read about the partition.
I think you have to decide when you read, what the facts are not in dispute. So what is it? Depiction may be different. You may have viewpoints coming from this side, viewpoints coming from that side, and because reality is multifaceted.
It is.
So I would suggest you read as much as you can. And, you can't just say that this is the book on partition. Because as you say, no matter who writes it, it's going to have a bias. So you have to adjust for that bias.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that should be the last question coming from that side. Yeah.
Hi. I think we've spoken and there's a couple of questions on how this generation views partition, and I know that whenever something is written about partition, it's more to do with the violence that happened at that time. I think, and I come from a family where there are these stories of how the grandparents came from across the border. I think apart from the stories of violence and how they came with only 3 clothes on their back, I think there's entire regret of a loss of culture that I grew up without and which could have been there. For example, when I pick up my books of my great-grandfather, they're in Urdu, and I never grew up, even thinking of knowing that language and imagining the fact that, that could have been a language of the family. So I think there's that aspect that I don't see covered too much and written too much about, because there is so much to talk about the violence and there are so many stories around it.
You're right.
One question.
That was the briefest answer we ever had. You're right. And I have no doubt about that. Yes.
When one writes fiction on these incidents like partition or Holocaust, there is always a chance of coming it out in a exaggerated or biased version. So what do you think? Writing fiction on such matters, is it correct?
That you have to leave to the internal dynamics or the internal balance of fiction. Anything that is not, anything that is, what to use your words, exaggerated or biased, will not stay. It will not survive as good fiction. Because ultimately the reader, who may be coming from anywhere, will say, oh, this is junk, this is propaganda, So if that you leave to the writer's conscience.
Yeah, but when you say keeping the memory alive is the most essential matter in this.
Absolutely, and I don't mean.
So if the memory is kept alive in such exaggerated versions.
No, it can't be. It can't be, because that will not survive. Because when your next generation reads it, they are not idiots. They are going to go and see what actually happened. They'll read 10 other books, as the young lady out there said. And then they will know that no, this one it's coming from a particular angle, so this one doesn't need that much respect. So ultimately these things balance out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, I believe we are done with the questions. I could still give a liberty to one final person who wants to ask a question. Is there anyone? There, ma'am. Yes. I could see just one, so ma'am, you should be the final one then.
Hello.
Sat Shri Akal, sir. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
This was the greatest welcome that we've got. A big round of applause for her. The Sat Shri Akal sounded so good.
I take a lot of pride in being a Punjabi, and have grown up with parents who have gone through the partition. Both of them are here with me, and what is actually quite disturbing, sir, and I wish somebody else would write something more alive and positive about partition. Partition itself as a word is not very enthusiastic and not very alive and not very positive, you know. But I have yet to come across a book that talks good about it, because there wasn't anything good about it. So my question to you, sir, is that when we are revisiting history, is this a good thing to revisit? And if my daughter here, who is a generation after, what good can she find in this partition? And how do you think that we as parents should be telling this to them? My nani